G'day everyone, welcome to our ranking of every episode of The Office, and we've got Season 1 episode rankings coming up here. We've also got who are the best characters in Season 1 ranking for the best characters on the show, and looking forward to getting into the greatest sitcom of all time. Let's get into it with number 6. It was a very short season, obviously, Season 1. Number 6 is basketball. This was a surprise, but basketball does not bring much in the way of jokes at all. The basketball game itself is actually quite fun to follow because it's actually like a back and forth game. But yeah, there's just nothing that really hits those highs of great comedy that you'd usually see from The Office, especially at the start. I think the second half of the episode where we're actually playing the basketball game and getting ready for the basketball game, that's probably the best part. But then you get into not much else. There's a little bit of a highlight through Michael telling Oscar that we will use your talents come baseball season, my friend, or if we box. That's fantastic. It's a great line. Dwight's shirt that he wears and his whole uniform with the face guard and everything his anime shirt. It's all amazing during the basketball game. That's fantastic. A really interesting dynamic, obviously, between Roy and Jim. This is one thing where they differentiate from the British version, where they wanted to make it so the American version of Jim could sort of like physically compare to Roy, whereas in the British version, Tim was a lot shorter. He was a little bit intimidated. You got the feeling he was a little bit intimidated by Dawn's partner, and with Roy and Jim, however, they're kind of like on level footing. And here, like, Jim actually kind of shows Roy up in the basketball game. But obviously the irony at the end is it kind of also shows that Jim is not the absolute perfect, most mature guy, and that's okay because he has been shown to be an absolute legend, like truly a superhero in previous episodes. Like, I'll get to Diversity Day soon. In some of the other episodes, he comes off as like, okay, this is the guy you're cheering for. But in this episode, he's a bit petty. He honestly seems to think that Pam cares about basketball ability, which is, I love sport, but no, that's one trap that I've definitely I've seen with other people. I've seen with myself as well. That's just that's a young guy thing. Young guys do genuinely like to think that if they're good at a sport, or if they play well at a sport, women will be impressed. They don't care. It's kind of a silly, women are looking at this going like, God, that's stupid. And I'm like, yeah, it is. It is dumb, but it's a very relatable thing for Jim to be like, oh man, I scored some points with Pam today, looking really good in the basketball game. And then in the next moment, he sees, Roy and Pam joking about, having a bath together later on. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, not quite. Apparently that Pam doesn't care about that. Of course she doesn't. But yeah, it was kind of cool to see Jim not be like the perfect human and just be a little bit immature in this episode, which was really cool. Really interesting that they went that way because having one-dimensional characters can be a bit boring after a while. And Jim is very likable, but he's not an absolute, he's not the perfect, absolute perfect guy. And I think that's far better than if he was written to be that. But yeah, the 6th best episode of basketball. Not that great as far as the jokes go. I think, the best line really is having, Michael constantly refer to Stanley as the secret weapon, and then Stanley, when he starts dribbling the ball, is adorable. The ending where, Kevin and Phyllis kind of show that they're really good at basketball through the episode as well. Like, Phyllis sinks like this 3-pointer. Kevin obviously just sinks 3-pointer after 3-pointer after 3-pointer right at the end of the episode. Which is Brian Baumgartner, the guy who plays Kevin. He genuinely is really sporty and plays a lot of sport. So, yeah, that was definitely not CGI. That was just Brian Baumgartner shooting basketball hoops. Anyway, go on to the next episode, which I could have sworn would have been the number 6, but it's actually coming at number 5. It's done better than I thought, and that was the pilot. The pilot comes in at number 5. There is a very technical, very thorough point system that, if you guys are interested, I will share in the comments, because there's a lot to go over with the point system, and I won't waste your time with it in a video unless you really want to know. But basically, basketball came in with 18 points. The pilot comes in with 23 points. So the pilot is actually not too bad. However, unfortunately, could have been better. There's one scene, my favourite scene from the pilot is in the deleted scene. So Jim does a talking head exactly the same as Tim from the British Office. And a lot of this episode is almost exactly the same as the British Office. They've just changed a bunch of the jokes, but it's very, very similar. And Jim does the same talking head that Tim does in the British Office, where he says, he finishes his talking head introducing what he does at the company by saying he's boring himself just talking about it. And he has another talking head where he talks about if they didn't exist, to sell paper, people would be writing on bed sheets, on walls, it'd be chaos, utter chaos. And that's really funny. It's really, really good. And if you can hunt down that deleted scene anywhere, it's really funny. It should have been in the episode. And there's a few other scenes as well that were like original scenes that should have just been in the episode. They should have just done their own original episode. And I think hindsight being 2020, they all agree with that. But we do have some highlights though. Michael asking, it does take a while though. It does take a while into the episode where Michael asks Jan if Josh has been talking about downsizing himself. Not downsizing himself, but downsizing him. Like, that's really funny, that little quip. I thought that was really great. And that same scene basically is where you've got Michael, Pam, and Jan in the office, and they're all discussing it, and they're basically saying, hey, no, it doesn't leave this room. No one mentions downsizing outside of this room. Immediate cut to Phyllis asking Stanley in the bullpen, so what does downsizing actually mean? And that sort of thing. And it also later cuts to Ryan, and Ryan's on his first day, and he's like talking to his mate on the phone about like, yeah, it's been all right. Apparently this branch is getting closed down. I mean, I don't know, it's my first day. That's really good. Like, it's already, everyone knows about it, even the temp who's just started. That's great. That definitely helps this episode. And the best part, I think, is the Jell-O prank from Jim. There's a few good Dwight Jim moments with the pencils sticking up and everything. That's great. But like the Jell-O joke, and then should have put him in custody, and I've always been your biggest fan, and all that sort of thing, it's all gold. There's a lot of good stuff. That whole Jell-O prank is really good, and obviously Jim revisits that by putting Michael's mug in Jell-O as well. So yeah, it does actually, thanks to these moments like this, it does actually get above the basketball episode, which I do enjoy watching the basketball episode, but it's really ranked low on the scoring system just because it didn't have that many great jokes at all, or that many great moments. The pilot does have a little bit more. We're going to jump up a little bit more now to the episode that I think has the most, probably the worst scenes in in almost any episode of the show. It might be one of the worst Michael episodes ever, as far as he comes off like such a creep, but Hot Girl, where Michael spends most of the episode just being a creep towards the new woman who is the saleswoman who's selling the purses, played by Amy Adams, Pam 6.0 apparently. There's some great lines though that do elevate this episode, even though it's incredibly cringy, above the last two, and actually puts it at number 4. However, that being said, there is a big gap between the top 3 and the bottom 3, and there's definitely a top 3 episodes that are way above the other 3. And yeah, Hot Girl is 4th, but it's not that still not that great. Ultimately, we have like we're back in the 80s, before people knew how bad cocaine was. Man, did they move paper! That was amazing. That's a really funny line. Michael is awful in this episode, but that line is really funny. It's just like a random line where he's comparing caffeine to cocaine, and yeah, it's really good. And then it literally, the whole episode is not that great. It really is just right towards the end, where Jim basically, the episode is it probably is the worst episode. Actually, no, it is. It's the worst episode of season 1 until the last 2 minutes or so, where you get Jim chatting to Katie, and there's a lot of gold there. Like, Jim chatting to Katie is really fun. Jim then chatting to Pam about Katie's first date, like dinner, drinks, matching tattoos, all that sort of thing is great. Pam going up to Jim and being like, I'm bored, and Jim being like, oh, thank you, thank you for making coming up to me because you were bored. There's a lot of good stuff right at the end with Jim specifically. So Jim, I think, really saves this episode, and if you're rooting for the Jim and Pam relationship, having evidence that Pam is actually jealous of Katie is really interesting as well. That's really fun. So this episode should be last. It's really just the one incredible Michael talking head. That is probably my favourite talking head from Michael in the whole first season, although I'll have to go through the rest of it. But that was really funny, the cocaine line. Man, did they move paper. I'm great. I think that's really funny. And yeah, then right at the end with Jim. Jim saves this episode from being the worst episode of season 1 and probably one of the worst episodes of all time in The Office, and bumps it up to a little bit of a higher grade just for the last 2 minutes. Don't freak out, it's a Corolla. Like, the stuff like that, which is just such good, like, flirty, joking banter that's, like, so realistic as well. And that's why I love The Office. A lot of that sort of stuff that isn't the over-the-top sort of stuff. It's like the little lines that are, like, more conversational and more really realistic to how conversation goes. Yeah, really, really fun. That was absolute gold. So, yeah, this episode only just 4th because of the ending. But this is also the end of Michael just being horrible, ending the episodes with just being horrible to the women of the office. Like, there's a lot of that. He's horrible to Pam at the end of the pilot. In Diversity Day, he's horrible to Kelly at the end of Diversity Day. He's horrible to Meredith at the end of the Alliance. And now he's horrible to this other woman who comes in. He's also pretty horrible to Phyllis through the basketball episode as well, if you want to throw Phyllis in there as well. And then he's horrible to a woman who comes into the office just for the day, Katie, through the entire episode. So yeah, let's get on to the good stuff though. There's 3 very good episodes of season 1, and the worst of those 3, the one that came in at number 3, is Diversity Day. So Diversity Day is probably the one that is favorited, I think, the most. I think it's a little bit overrated because it's like the first original episode of The Office in the American version. It's the one that sort of showed American audiences that, like, oh, okay, this show can be originally good. But I also don't know if it's that great. I think it's more cringy for the first, like, 13 minutes or so. And then once you hit about minute 14, when it's just everyone in the conference room, this is the first stretch of The Office being really good. That sort of, like, 6-minute run from minute 14 to the end of the episode, this is real gold. And a lot of it is setting up the antagonists, which they do a lot of through the first part of the episode. And you'll see with a bunch of these episodes in season 1 that, I mean, I just talked about it with Hot Girl as well, how the ending is by far the best part of Hot Girl. Diversity Day is similar in that the first 2/3 of the episode really aren't that great. It's more cringy, it's more just being uncomfortable, and it's more setting up the antagonists and showing the antagonist, showing Michael being horrific. I mean, still funny, but, like, awful, and then also Dwight being a complete idiot, and then you kind of get to see a bit more sort of like Jim, Pam, and a bit more of the other characters through the back half of through the last third of the episode, where you have even a great line from Kevin as well, where he says, you know, he's got the Italian thing still on his forehead after the Michael's horrible game about race mixing has sort of like ended, and yeah, he's still got the Italian thing on his forehead, and he's like, maybe some spaghetti, and Michael's like, take it down, Kevin. Yeah, that's great. It's the first time, I think it's the best moment, maybe the best moment in season 1 from anyone who isn't like the main 4, but I'll have to go through it again, but I think that's probably my favourite moment from anyone who isn't Jim, Pam, Dwight, or Michael. Which is saying a lot, because there isn't much else that the other characters really bring in this first season. It becomes way more of an ensemble show as it goes on, obviously, as pretty much most shows do, except for Friends maybe. But yeah, you end up getting that's probably the best line from anyone who isn't one of the big 4 in the whole of season 1. But yeah, in the back half of the back third of this episode, from about minute 14 on, you've got, you know, Michael holding the conference room meeting once Mr. Brown has left, and talking about how he's 2/15 Native American, but it's hard for him to talk about with all the suffering. He's talking about how, you know, is there something other than Mexican that we can use, Oscar, that's less offensive? Which, obviously, him saying that is incredibly offensive, and there's nothing offensive about the term Mexican, but Michael thinks it's offensive because he's a moron. Sorry, ignorant. Maybe that's a nicer way to say it, but no, he's an idiot. Yeah. We also got, like, the Olympics of suffering when he goes up to Stanley and Pam when they have the Jewish and African American sort of forehead cards, and he's talking about the Olympics of suffering, slavery versus the Holocaust. Like, God almighty. So bad. And Dwight, obviously, like, going up. Pam sees that Dwight has the Asian card on his forehead and basically say, like, based on stereotypes, I don't quite believe you may be a bad driver. And Dwight's like, oh, my woman? That's a great line too. That's really, really funny. That's the funniest thing. That's the first really funny Dwight line, in my opinion, of the whole series. There's a few things here where it's like the first time we really get Yeah, for me, that's the funniest Dwight line of the first 2 episodes, is that one there. He's got a few other good lines, obviously, because Dwight is Dwight. Dwight's always very consistent with how much humour he brings to the show. But yeah, we've got... And then, of course, we got the ending, which is probably... And there's a really good sort of moment just after that as well, where Jim and Ryan are talking, and Ryan is just looking at a Chappelle Show sketch on Pam's computer, and Jim's watching it with him. And Ryan's like, "Oh, she's pretty cute, right?" And Jim's like, "Oh, she's engaged." And Ryan's like, "Oh no, I'm talking about the woman in the sketch." And he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And it sort of shows you where Jim's head is at. Like, Jim is obviously attracted to Pam, and that's where his mind is. When anyone else in that situation would have thought that Ryan was talking about the woman on the video in the sketch. So yeah, it was great little storytelling, and more hinting that Jim really does like Pam, because this is still very early in the show. This is only episode 2. And then obviously the ending with Pam falling asleep on Jim's shoulder is adorable, and Jim then saying, "Not a bad day," after he got his massive sale whipped out from under him from Dwight, who gave this client a discount, and then Dwight got the commission instead of Jim, which would make other people furious. I mean, I've kind of worked in sales environments before, and frankly, I don't really have a huge issue with Dwight doing that. It can be, you can see it as a bit sleazy, but that sort of thing does happen in sales environments. And yeah, having Jim just like have that attitude of like, that was a good day because Pam fell asleep on my shoulder for a few minutes. That's very, very cute. And yeah, definitely very, very relatable too, when you have those little moments when you have a crush on a woman, but like she's not actually dating you, and it's like, yeah, it's very, very special. So I thought that was a really beautiful moment, and yeah, that's a very famous moment in The Office. I'm not crying, you're crying. Anyway, back to the top 2 episodes. Now, this was a close battle. Healthcare or the Alliance, and I actually thought this is where they really start to highlight the show as a little bit more centered around less of Michael, a little bit more, and more of the other of the big 4, Dwight, Pam, and Jim. And this is where you start really seeing, like, Pam has a great sense of humor here. Yeah, Dwight is absolutely phenomenal. He starts really stepping up, and Jim is just amazing as well. And we're seeing less of like Jim just being a really sweet guy, which he is in the first 2 episodes, and now we're seeing like how funny Jim and Pam can be together. And that's kind of what puts these 2 episodes, the smack bang right in the middle of season 1, as the top 2 episodes of season 1. While I'm still talking, let's get into the Alliance. The Alliance is number 2, very, very close, this one. To give you an idea, Hot Girl had 36 points. I referenced the points earlier. Diversity Day had 60 points, and the Alliance has 79. Healthcare has 83. So these 2 episodes are actually pretty similar. It's a lot of great moments with Jim and Pam both pranking Dwight. It's absolute gold. And even early on, there's some really good lines. So we'll kick it off with Healthcare. Now, Healthcare is the best episode of season 1, according to the rankings. Yeah, basically, Jim asking Pam if she's seen Trading Spouses, and then saying no, I have a life, and just like Jim just being like, "Oh, what's that like?" And I'm just like, well, who would watch my TV? Like, there's a lot of good little banter there from Jim and Pam, which is absolute gold. Jim looking into Michael's tray and seeing that Michael doesn't actually have anything on at all, and then saying, "Oh, Dwight should do it," when he's picking the healthcare plan. Great stuff. And then the jokes from Jim and Pam about the the fake diseases are all gold. Both when they're coming up with it at their desk, where Jim saying, "I thought you were making up diseases. That's called spontaneous dental hydropollution." That's gold. That's absolutely amazing. Such a funny line. All of that is really funny. And then obviously Dwight then listing the fake diseases like Ebola and mad cow disease, killer nanorobot infection was another one, hot dog fingers was another one, and having like especially characters who are meant to be very serious and grumpy, like Angela and Stanley, both break character, which is ironic because they're 2 of the people who, Leslie David Baker and Angela Kinsey, who are 2 of the people who are least like their characters, so they are the sort of people who would break, and just find that really funny. I feel like Brian Baumgartner is actually more of a Stanley in real life, just from based on what I've seen in interviews. But yeah, that's all gold. Even Michael just like ringing up Creed, who that's Creed on the other end of the line, in case you're curious, but about the mine shaft. So it's not a free fall. And once you get down there, is there like laser tag or something? That's gold as well. There's a lot of good stuff. And then yeah, Jim locking Dwight in the conference room, and then obviously the fake phone call with Pam. Jim and Pam are on fire this episode. They're so good. And this could be, I think, one of the best Pam episodes of all time, because she has a lot of great comedy here. I think later on in the show it gets a bit frustrating, because I think Jim and Pam, it becomes a bit more Jim's the funny one and Pam is like the sweet one, whereas back really early on it was kind of like both of them were really funny, and I think that's something they should have kept a little bit more. Saving a lot of the funny lines, funny jokes, funny storylines more for Pam as well, to sort of split it up, because I think they're both really funny, and it works well where they're both sort of really funny. Jim throwing the ice cream sandwich at Dwight is absolute gold as well. It doesn't end as strongly, healthcare, but it's so strong through the first like 16, 17 minutes, and especially towards the middle of the episode where you're getting like the list of fake diseases and all that sort of thing, and yeah, it's really, really strong. And that's what you'll see with a bunch of these episodes, because there's no cold open in the first season, and often the ending of the episodes can sometimes be just like a really awkward scene where Michael is an absolute horrible person to one of the women in the office, like we described before. He kind of takes turn with each of the women of the office to be horrible to them. Then you've got the Alliance, where you've got more. Pam is absolutely incredible in this episode as well. She's got a lot of good moments. Thinking the greenish, whorish, gambling, that I wouldn't smack her, that sort of thing. Like Pam getting annoyed at Angela in the party planning meeting is really good. Jim obviously messing around with Dwight and saying that, we have an alliance, and then coming up with the fake conversation that he had with Kevin and Toby about, how like a Subway sandwich's bread are really good down the road, and things were tense in the lunchroom. Like that's all gold. Like, and Jim then just like that being Jim explaining how tense it was and how they were talking about the alliance and downsizing, but actually, and then cutting to what was really happening, which is a really mundane conversation about bread. is great. That's just Jim being incredible. Pam's fake phone call that she made up when Dwight was in the box, Dwight getting in the box to begin with. It's a lot of great Jim and Pam and Dwight stuff here. And Michael's line also had a good line with asking Oscar, how far did your nephew walk last year? He did 23 miles. I'm like, son of a bitch, that's good. That's really funny too. And yeah, the ending is fantastic. Not so much the Roy getting aggressive with Jim part, although it's interesting. It is really interesting. But it's unpleasant to watch. But yeah, having Ryan basically chatting to Toby and saying, like, oh, it's actually my birthday today. And Toby was like, oh, really? Cool. Do you want me to say anything? No. That's good. And then the final reveal with Dwight. That's politics, baby. when he has the bleach blonde hair. Oh, that's a very good ending. That's very, very funny. So the Alliance, a very close race for the best episode of season 1, and it's just Healthcare with 83 points, just ahead of the Alliance. Some of the best sort of episodes we had from individual characters. So we had, let's see, if we go through it, we had go through and sort of see some of the standouts. Michael and Jim are the best characters from Diversity Day and the pilot. But then when you get into Healthcare, that's like a really strong Jim episode. That could go down as one of the best. I think that might be the best episode any one character actually had, yeah. Yeah, Jim in Healthcare is by far the best character performance ever. And the second best character performance is actually Pam in the Alliance. So good to see Pam back when Pam was funnier than what she was later on in the series. She was really, really great in the Alliance, and that's a little bit less Jim and a little bit more Pam and Dwight stepping up in the Alliance to show why they're so funny. But yeah, a lot of good stuff. But yeah, I think the two standouts, definitely the best single episode performance from a character, if we're rating it, is Jim in Healthcare. He was phenomenal. And then second goes to Pam in the Alliance, and then Dwight in the Alliance. And then overall in the season, and obviously we talk about Jim kind of like swoops in and saves Hot Girl from being the worst episode of season 1 in pretty much the last 2 minutes when he asks out Katie and has a bit of flirty banter with Katie, then with Pam, then with Katie again. Yeah, it's really fun. Love Jim. Jim talking to women he's interested in is always gold. It's always good fun. And then overall, you go into who are the best character of season 1 based on the scoring. 127 points for Jim. He's actually well ahead of Michael, who had 71, and that's really impressive considering Michael gets so much more camera time than anyone else. But Jim is definitely the best character from season 1. Michael's in second. Dwight is only just ahead of Pam in third, and the only other character to score points was Kevin. So Dwight's on 48, Pam's on 43, Kevin's on 10 points. Feel free to let me know in the comments if you do want to hear about how this scoring system works. But for me, it was the only way I could do it in a really thorough way and rank all the episodes. And we're going to go through now one by one through season 2, one by one through season 3, and with lots of episodes coming up in the series. And we're going to put them all into the rankings and keep on adding them in. So we're going to have 7 episodes overall in the rankings next week as we add the Dundies in there. The Dundies is known as one of the greatest episodes of all time, possibly the most important episode of The Office of all time, and I can't wait to get into it. Before I did this really thorough scoring system, I thought the Dundies would probably be in my top 10 of all time, and we'll see if it is with the scoring system, because even like in season 1 isn't rated as being that good, but Healthcare and The Alliance, and to a bit of a lesser extent Diversity Day, are all really solid episodes. Diversity Day more than just the back end. The last 6 or 7 minutes of Diversity Day is really strong. And yeah, Hot Girl really only in 4th place because of the last 2 minutes with Jim. And then the pilot actually got ahead of Basketball, which Basketball's still enjoyable to watch. I think the worst moments of Basketball are not as bad as the worst moments of pretty much every other episode of the season. Basketball never is uncomfortable to watch, whereas there's little moments in every other episode which are uncomfortable to watch in my opinion. And in Hot Girl there's a lot of moments with every scene with Michael and Katie, and it's pretty much uncomfortable to watch. But yeah, Basketball just doesn't bring the highs like the others do. Even the pilot and Hot Girl beat it. So yeah, there we go. That's the beginning of the rankings. So ranking, really quick summary, we've got number 6 was Basketball, number 5 the pilot, number 4 Hot Girl, then a big gap, big jump up to Diversity Day, and then very close race for the top 2, but number 1 was Healthcare, number 2 was The Alliance, but both are very similar, and both are great because they really, the first time they really start highlighting the dynamic between Dwight, Pam, and Jim, which is absolute gold. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video and can't wait to make a lot more. This will be probably the longest one because we're just doing 1 episode at a time from now on and putting that into the rankings and see where it fits compared to the episodes that came before it. Can't wait, and see you guys in the next video.